Hello and welcome to episode 53 of the Car Podcast with Chris Harris and his friends. Two of us, I think, are not in the UK, and two of us, I think, are in the UK. No, three of us are not in the UK. In fact, three of us are in Italy. One of us stays proudly waving that flag in Blighty, and it's Mr. Cooper. He stays there, permanently, just in case there's an emergency. Someone's got some Italian people talking in the background quite loudly. I don't know which one of us that is. I suspect I know which one it
Me.
is. Yeah. So if you hear that in the background, just imagine that you're sitting in a cafe somewhere in Milan, because that's exactly what's happening. We start today's podcast with a difficult subject, one we've tackled before. Um, what to do about Lotus? Could we fix it? And if we could, what would we do? In fact, I hate offering to fix things because I'm not sure we're qualified to do so. But I think we can observe what's gone on and maybe apply some sympathy and hopefully not go down the route of saying, this is what we do, because that would definitely fix it. I'm not sure we could, even with these massive brains next to me. Let's start off with Mr. Cooper.
Yeah. So we're recording this on Tuesday, the 9th of September. On Saturday in the UK, the Financial Times published a really, actually quite good article. I'll put it, show it to my colleagues now. We'll put a little picture, a screen grab up on screen of the headline of the story.
It was good.
And unusually for these days, it was sort of quite well written, and somebody had probably indulged in some actual journalism. And rather than just using Chat GPT or regurgitating stuff from Google, I've just invented a new social media. I'd actually gone to talk to people. It was kind of worse than I think we all hoped it was. And it was a mixture of awful strategy, poor leadership, not great execution, culture, people troubles, lack of clarity, revolving doors, blah, blah, blah. And the basic story was Lotus is in trouble. A while ago in the summer, there was a story in the British press that said there was a suggestion that the Lotus factory in Norfolk, home of Lotus since 1966, was going to close. And our view at the time was, because that very quickly went away, and that somebody in UK government had probably gone to somebody in Geely or in Lotus somewhere else and said, I don't care what you do, get that story off the news. We can't solve it. It ain't helping. And very quickly there was a backtracking. Last week there was a story that about half the workforce is going to be made redundant. As chance would have it, on Saturday, I found myself nearby the local purveyor of Lotus cars. And that was a photograph that I took. Again, we'll put it up so everyone can see it. Even with a good version of the photograph, you'll still think that looks like a rather anonymous looking collection of very large, generically styled, I don't know what. Are they SUVs? Are they saloons? Are they hatchbacks? Shit, there's a Lotus badge on the bonnet of these cars. And one of them, which doesn't look terribly appealing, has a price tag, one of those old-fashioned little things hanging on the driver's mirror, that says £132,000. That's what's gone wrong. So, what's the answer? Is there a solution? And I think we are eternally optimistic. We'll never say die. We may not be experts in everything, although how hard can it be sometimes? What is the answer? The first thing I think we've got to recognize, I think Lotus has the wrong parent. One of the smartest people I worked with a few years ago said, thinking about M&A stuff and which businesses own which, was to say, there comes a point when you've got to realize you're the wrong parent for a business. And right now, if you read that FT article, that reeks of Geely is the wrong parent for that business. And money alone won't fix this problem. So who should the parent be? I mean, it could be any proven automotive business that has taken on struggling or failing British brands and made a success of them. There are plenty that have done that. VW did it with Bentley and certainly took it further. BMW did it with Mini and with Rolls-Royce. I made a great fist of taking Range Rover from the P38 to the 322. So there is form for taking businesses like that. And then there's, okay, what's it for? What is Lotus for? Those 130 odd grand blancmange things, that ain't a Lotus. A Lotus is a light car. It's a fun car. It reminds us of, small country roads. And crikey, when Mazda wanted to change its business, it copied a Lotus Elan with the MX-5, which has become the world's greatest selling sports car, or something near that. So it's not impossible. So ownership, strategy, what does it stand for? Money alone won't do it. But I remain
Okay.
optimistic.
Yeah, I hope so. Neil Clifford.
Well, I think that's brilliantly said, Chris. And it was a depressingly, probably quite accurate article. I suppose I have to play the optimist slightly. If there was going to be a company that creates an EV sports car that is affordable and fun and pretty, it should be Lotus. That should be the strategy, because even if we're all slightly anxious and depressed about what EV means for driving pleasure, it's going to happen. Even if the delay to EV, is more 10 or 15 years or whatever, and it's not, driving pleasure isn't going to disappear completely because of the introduction of EV, because it is such a wonderful thing to go for a drive and enjoy the movement. And we'll talk a bit about that later, aren't we? So I think it's written in the stars strategically that Lotus do have an amazing opportunity to create a 50, 60 grand, or let's say 40 grand. If Chinese ownership means that you have the ability to make four-door electric cars for 25 grand, maybe you could make the EV Elan for 25 or 30 grand. And frankly, they'd sell a ton of them, wouldn't they? I would expect, because it's not always going to be about these four-door sort of generic things. There are going to be plenty of young people, old people that will buy a 30 grand Elan that's an EV that's got 300 miles range and has an element of lightness. It's a bit contradictory, isn't it? Just add lightness. No, I'll add a 1-ton battery. But maybe, there's amazing engineers, incredible talent up in Hethel. I'm sure the brains is there to do it. So that's what I would hope is going to happen out of this bit of a depressing current situation.
Yes. What do you think, Manish, given that you have a different connection to Hethel, one that's very much Senna based? What do you think about what's going on at the moment?
Well, just before we came on, we were just having a chat about the fact that basically every couple of weeks on this pod, we talk about, and we might be specific about the manufacturer, but if you like, the climate of this pod is very often what is happening to, and then fill in the brand. And, the climate here is set by the fact that, electric vehicles are here, they're here to stay. I hate the word disruptor, but this technology has disrupted the ICE. I do believe in global warming. I'm not a climate change skeptic. And I think, we all agree something needs to be done. I think the thing is that car companies have to segment and adapt. And I wrote down, everything that Chris Cooper's just said. What is a Lotus? Light. They weren't necessarily overpowered. In fact, if anything, they were almost underpowered, but because they were so light, they were such wonderful cars, responsive, supple, British styling. These were a few little headlines I wrote. And Chris has said, it's about the right parent. So you've got a light, kind of, let's say, adequately powered, responsive, supple, British style, and you sell it to a Chinese EV manufacturer. And what they want is the badge. That's what they want. Neil's brought up the fact that if anyone can produce a car like that and put a battery in it, it could be Lotus. And he brought up the key point, at a price point. Ferrari will do it. Lamborghini will do it. You'll have supercar manufacturers will be able to do it. But you have to do it at a price point. And you're absolutely right, Neil. If the Chinese sit down and say, do you know what? We want to go for this £35,000 two-seat, super light, beautifully supple car with our lightest, Chinese tech battery that charges in 4 minutes. That's the optimistic side. I mean, my last little point would be a film analogy here. A lot of people think that the kind of golden era for Hollywood, I sort of agree, sort of post-war was actually the 60s into the 70s. And those films were cheap, responsive, director-led, actor-driven. They were the Lotuses of their time.
Rock
And then
Hudson.
Jaws came. Sorry?
Rock Hudson.
Apart from Rock Hudson, he was more a TV actor in my opinion. But the thing is that they were really fabulous dramas. They were like little Lotus cars, and then Jaws came along, and then superhero movies came along. And look at the industry. Look at the film industry. It's sequel after sequel, trillions and trillions of pounds. Even the Formula One movie, they had to go and spend 400 million on it. They couldn't spend 100 million on it or 50 million on it. Make it, small, light, beautiful, and dramatic. And I think cars perhaps are going through a very similar crisis. If you want to make lots of money, make your cars really expensive, make lots of them and sell them. There's a problem with that. No one's buying them. Just like superhero movies, they're now starting to kind of fall off. We feel they're really samey. I mean, you just showed that photo of those 130,000 quid Lotuses or Loti. I mean, I can't tell that that's a Lotus apart from the badge. You're exactly right.
Um, yeah, I want to be positive, but I'm sort of running out of steam with it. I was reading a copy of Car magazine from 1983, and I think the first news headline was Lotus in crisis. Like I've said here before, it just seems to be perpetually in crisis, and which is ironic when I look in the mirror. I think I can't really I can't see it at the moment. I don't see the business case or the volumes for a small electric sports car at the moment. They might come. Um, I think I think deciding to do these big electric SUV and saloon type things, I can see why Geely thought, well, we'll throw some money at that because nothing else is selling at the moment, and the EU seems to be moving in that direction. But it hasn't really worked. I want Lotus to survive, of course I do, but I want the people there to survive more.
Yes.
Um, but I just don't see it at the moment. I really don't. And sometimes maybe you're better off stopping something, having a rethink and re-emerging, like the phoenix from the ashes as something completely new. But do we really believe, hand on heart, that if there was a small Lotus electric sports car, it would fly off the shelves right now? I don't think it would. Porsche's pretty much shelving or trying very hard not to launch its electric box string Cayman at the moment because it knows that it's got a sales disaster on its hands when it arrives. So I don't know. I think the best thing Lotus could do would be to collaborate. I think I think it should Lotusify some cars for now. At the moment, what its production message hasn't really worked. It hasn't resonated with people. Some people apparently bought these things for £130,000. But just imagine if we had Lotus Carltons and Lotus Sunbeams, and I just think maybe
Mm.
apply the Lotus badge to some really cool shit for now. Give us
Ford
some
could do.
Lotus.
Ford could do with some interest, couldn't it?
How cool would that be if we had a new
Mm.
Lotus something?
Mm.
So
Mm.
keep the sexiness for the brand, remind us of its roots, go back, regroup, and then re-emerge with a product. It could be a small sports car. It could be a small electric sports car, but I think as we pointed out here, I think that's still several years away that the market for that car could be of any volume.
Yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, but I want, I wish everyone the best. I want it to be okay, but it just seems there's a Bristol showroom on the way out of Cribbs Causeway where there's a sort of you've got the Lovett Empire, and then in the middle of it is this outpost of sort of bit of Lamborghini, bit of Bentley, and the Lotus thing sits in the middle. And I always drive past it. I just in my head I've got one of those floating question marks over the image as I go past it. I've never really understood it. So there we go. Moving on, because I can't see my telephone, my learned friends are going to tell me what the next point on the agenda is.
Keep driving happy.
Yeah, I'm not one to answer that. Keep driving happy. I'm going to go straight to Manish. Go on, tell me how you drive happy, Manish.
Well, I'll tell you how I didn't drive happy 48 hours ago, and then just negate everything I say, and you've got the answer. It was we are afflicted by a tube strike in London, and I've got to tell you, you have a tube strike in London, and everyone piles onto the buses, everyone piles into their cars, into their cabs, and I Lola was invited to the Hampton Court Fair. Went to go and pick her up on Sunday at tea time. What should have been probably a 50-minute journey was almost 2 hours, averaging about 6 miles an hour. And the only thing that kept me happy was a very cool guy on a Ducati overtook me, pulled up in front of me, turned around, and blew me a little Italian kiss like that when he saw the car. Keep driving happy. Don't drive tired. Try to find roads that are not afflicted with tons and tons of traffic. I think don't drive hungover. Try to avoid alcohol. That keeps you very, very happy. Try the right weather, not too hot, not too cold. But here are my 3 killer points, I think. Pick the right music if you're going to play music. Pick the right passenger if you're going to have a passenger. And pick the right car for the journey. Don't drive at 4 miles an hour in a hot Ferrari 456 in bumper to bumper traffic, because it just winds you up and it really doesn't matter what the interior is like. There is my answer.
Fabulous test of the cooling pack. Fabulous test of the cooling pack of the car, though, man. If it survived that, then you've got a healthy 456. That more than an autobahn blast is a much bigger test of the car.
No, never got above. She never got above half temperature. Never got above half temperature. Amazing, amazing.
Let's go to Neil Clifford.
I always bloody drive happy. To be honest, it's sort of the only place where I am. Well, that's not completely true. It's sort of the happiest place, even if I'm not looking forward to the journey. It's 8 o'clock at night and I've got to drive home from the office. It's still, if my happiness level is at 4, I get into the car and it's at 7. I just bloody love being in the car. I'm driving up this evening from Milan up to north of Milan, and I can't bloody wait. I've got this little tingle, I've got this little excitement. You know, I can drive for 4 or 5 hours doing a job, as in commuting or working or, you know, the sort of more structured part of driving. And I can get home and within half an hour, I'm like, oh, shall I go for a drive? So driving is my happy place. It's very, very, very rare that I'm not happy when I'm driving. It's very often a place that I move my happiness needle up a lot. I can be unhappy, don't often show it on the outside. I'm happy all the time, but inside, you know, we're often a little bit sad, aren't we, with stuff, work and drama and people and stuff, kids. But happiness, driving for me is happiness. So, yeah, I can't think of any time where I don't get happier if I get in a car, mainly on my own or with my wife. It's questionable, the selection of passenger apart from that, to be honest. Maybe a dog. Apart from that, I'm sort of, I'd rather there be no one in the car apart from my wife and my dog. Is that a bit miserable?
No, it's
A bit
perfect.
true.
No,
It's a bit
the
truthful.
the our parents' generation used to say something about going on holiday that I don't entirely agree with. They'd say, "We love going to France, we just don't like the French." Now, I don't agree with that at all, but it's my slightly clumsy way into the fact that I love driving. I just wish the roads were empty. It's other people on the roads that make me upset, not the road conditions or the cars. So, because I'm someone who just wakes up thinking the world's against him anyway, I tell you this: I've got a little playbook for when you're on a journey and your head goes. You know, when your head goes and you've woken up, you've got in the car, you've had your coffee, all's good in the world, and 5 minutes in, you can see little flecks of spittle against the windscreen because you're angry with what's going on around you. Right? Don't allow it to happen. My playbook is this: you think music is the solution. It isn't. You need the spoken word at that point. You must not have music. And when you mustn't go for anything controversial, don't put a politics podcast on. You don't want to rouse opinions. You need something soothing. You need something nourishing. You need some comfort food. I always go for radio comedies because I'm a Brit. Okay. Now, if you don't live in England, you won't have heard of Ed Reardon's Week, and you won't have heard of Cab Impression or the other things that I listen to. But get some Blackadder, get some Yes Minister, get any. Normally, an 80s BBC comedy will bring you back
Mm.
from the brink. Failing that, stop. The first time you can, stop at a service station. Go for a little walk, get some air. Remind yourself of the fact that you're not the wanker you thought you were 10 minutes ago. And then continue on your
We'll be
journey
the judge of that.
with love and compassion for your fellow motorist. Because all too often, it's not as tragic as you think it is, but I do this probably once a month where I think, me and society have got on the wrong foot today. This has not worked. I need to and it's not society's fault. You need to remove yourself from the problem, come away from it, and just go and chill out. Find another way of doing it. Go for a walk. I did this. Gloucester Services has a small little place you can walk. There's a little bit of greenery. It's absolutely littered with dog poo. People don't pick up their dog poos. But if you look at the ground and watch out for the dog eggs, actually, you can just relax. So there you go. Spoken word, not music. And also, calm your speed down.
Yeah.
Just take it nice and steady. So there you go. That's my little playbook. Chris Cooper, what about you?
I think it's about courtesy and good manners. And these are things we can all spread. Please, thank you, and sorry are the most powerful things everyone can do to make driving happier for everybody. We've all had it, where you're sort of, particularly in urban areas where there's a priority, which traffic has which way to sort of, you have to give way to traffic coming another way in a traffic calming measure. It's really easy sometimes to think, oh, I can just nip through there, and you can see the person on the other side thinking, oh, hang on, did I have priority there? And I found it when I'm in the car with the boys, and Finn and Cameron and I have often said this, is that you'll see somebody doing something which you sort of find, God, why have they done that? That's really irritating and selfish and so forth. But if they raise a hand to say sorry, the transformation in emotion, oh, he's a good guy. He's a good guy. He said sorry. That's fine. Okay. No, you go first. No, after you. The transformation in the mood in the car, if somebody just raises a hand to say sorry, or raises a hand to say thank you. When you're driving down a motorway and you can see there are two cars in the inside lane, one's catching the other and you're in the middle lane. If you anticipate that and indicate and pull out to vacate the middle lane, the car that's gaining will then pull out. And when you see that little hand raised in the window to say thank you for the courtesy of letting me out without me having to slow down or put the indicator on to say, is it okay? Please, thank you, and sorry, I think, are the most powerful things we can do in these troubled times where the car is our escape. The car is a happy place. It should always be a happy place. But I think there are things we can do to make it happiest. Please, thank you, and sorry, I think, make the world a better place.
That's true. Yeah, I think that's very true.
Next point on the agenda, please.
Colour. What's got cooler? What's got uncooler?
Oh, interesting,
Oh.
that. Not even thought about this. I'll think about it on the hoof. Let's go first to Manish.
Ooh, well, I think what has always been uncool and has got uncooler by the month is that weird gloss battleship grey, or the matte version of it. In fact, I think all matte cars are just uncool. End of story. There isn't one matte car, not even in a movie, that looks good. They just all look dreadful. All of them. They can take the classiest car in the world. If they make it matte, it's shit. That's just a global, universal, stable rule.
Can I ask a question, Manish? What about
Yeah.
Formula One cars? Because they're now all matte.
Can't stand it. I know they save 0.0001 grams in a car that weighs more than a lorry, but that's fine. That's absolutely fine. They can save it. I hate them. I just think they look terrible. Terrible.
Why are they matte? Is it about weight, or is it about how they appear on TV pictures or whatever?
Apparently, they all said that the matte literally reduces the mass of the car by 400 grams or something. Literally,
Lacquer, no lacquer.
No lacquer. So, do you remember that was a great thing about those the Marlboro McLarens? They weren't anywhere near the color you see them on TV. When you saw them live, they were this kind of day glow orange, but on TV they had that kind of Marlboro packet red. I just assume this matte, it is probably picked up by TV reasonably, but I think where you see it the worst actually is Monaco. Monaco glossy cars used to look so good. Now they're basically exactly the same sort of tint, tone, and reflection as the road. I don't think they look very good at all. Anyway, but I'll tell you what, I've always been a little bit of a fan of green cars. I have to say, I think green's just got cooler. I just wrote down a few rather lovely names. So we've got BMW Isle of Man green and Boston green, and they are fabulous greens. They got very deep, almost fir tree greens. I think the Boston green's got probably a bit more blue in it, so that's really rather lovely. There's the Porsche Largo green metallic. I mean, that is a color. What's the other one that I noted down here? Aston Martin Racing Green. I think as a variation of British Racing Green, that is a fabulous green. So green is it. Do you remember the very, very first Countach? Model
Yes.
001 with the chrome window surrounds. That was green. I mean, I think green
Con-
cars are the most underrated. In fact, the first ever Ferrari 456 I ever saw, I think it was outside Harrods. It was in the 90s. I can't remember what year. And I remember I walked past it because I didn't think it was a Ferrari. I stopped, I turned around, I went, oh my God, that's a Ferrari. And it was a very, very deep metallic green, black leather inside.
Verdi
I'll never
Zeltweg.
forget it.
Any money, it was Zeltweg.
yeah.
I'll buy that. It's a beautiful color.
Yeah. I love the fact that we now have a podcast that is fundamentally an audio product where we have a man that directs films reading out the colours or the different types of greens with no visual cue whatsoever. We'll attempt to put some of those up if we
Yeah,
have.
I will
Thank you,
send them
Finley.
all to
But
Finley.
I love
Finley can
so
do
if
it.
anyone else would like to list some colours through the power of language, it'd be great.
Read
Well,
out
Neil,
Pantone numbers.
yeah, Neil Clifford, colours, please.
What I think is coming hotter is navy blue is really the color in my view. And I think it's been ignored for too long. I think that so blue is the new green. I think it's always has been, actually. I think it's the chicest color. And I think, I have the opportunity maybe to spec a new car in the next couple of months, and it's definitely going to be navy blue. I think white. I think white is back. I think white has been in the doldrums for a long time, but I have a few cool chums that are specking white cars, and I think white could be the new green. I think brown is also very cool at the minute. I think green's in danger. I think green's my instinct is green is in danger of losing a bit of cool. And now cool is a very tricky conversation, and I think that green could be our good friend Luke that runs Make Green Great Again. Maybe it's become great and now it's at risk of being a bit too popular, particularly with gold wheels. Please don't do gold wheels on green cars, would be my
100%.
advice.
100%.
That's very, very suspect. Actually, I've only just thought of this. I was having a lovely conversation with two beautiful Aston Martin people at Hampton Court. One of them is Mark Gauntlet, the son of Victor Gauntlet, the owner of Aston Martin in the 80s, and also with Nicholas Mee,
Oh, yeah.
the number one Aston Martin guy who worked for Victor. He was, I
Long
think,
time.
sales manager, sales director at Aston Martin, and we were talking about colours, and actually we were looking at probably your favorite car of all time, Chris Harris,
Oh,
right? Which is the Gladiator Red Aston Martin V8 Zagato. That so-called chassis number one, which is a
yeah.
very funny story because they were telling me the story of chassis number one and the fact that Victor and Nicholas both sold a car on the launch day at the British Motor Show 1987 And they both sat down for a cup of tea and said, I can't believe it. The guy wants chassis number one. And he's like, that's a problem because I've also sold chassis number one. Yeah. So there is pre-production chassis number one, and then there is chassis number one,
Sassy.
which is a brilliant little
There's
story.
always
And
an
in
answer.
fact, the guy that ordered it genuinely walked past the Nicholas Me stand as we were talking about it. It was a very surreal moment. But what Nicholas was saying is, well, what Victor said to me was, we need some new colours, Nicholas. It's all a bit bloody boring and green and grey. What can we do? Let's have a look at what everyone else is doing. So they looked at Ferrari, they looked at Rolls-Royce, they looked at Bentley, Lamborghini. This was about 1986, 87. And they basically rung up ICI because he said, even though it's called Rossa Corsa, or even though it's called, I don't know, Posy Blue or Rooster, they're all ICI colours. So we just had a meeting with ICI and nicked all the colours. So Gladiator Red, and then most of them are named after British things like, I don't know, Norfolk Blue or Suffolk Red or whatever. They name them, being Aston Martin, after beautiful places in the UK. Gladiator Red, so I'm told, is Rossa Corsa. So we had, there's only so much pleasure you can get out of sat with Nicholas Me in the sunshine on Friday morning with an Aston Martin Zagata in the background, talking about Victor Gauntlet and the selection of colours. What a joyful, joyful bloody thing! But if you're thinking about choosing a car, my advice: navy blue, non-metallic, ideally, or white.
You see, this is why I asked this question, because I'm kind of a bit with you, Neil, on this. I wonder whether I still love green. I think it's very hard. It's unusual for me to look at a green car and think, but is it just too omnipresent? I don't know. And I just
It's in
kind of think,
danger. It's in danger.
I really like what you said, because that's exactly what was in my head when I thought about this question, and I thought we need to discuss this when I was thinking about the agenda. Does it need to have a bit of a rest for a while? Because, and I think that question about colours, and we've had this discussion before, and I think BMW has been in recent years the worst for it, and Land Rover with Defenders in particular, which is grey, black, light black, darker black, ink black, total black, absolute black, and every blackety black version of black going. Colour. What's wrong with a bit of colour? I went to an event in North Yorkshire the other week, and there were 7 or 8 Defenders, all black, black wheels, black glass, and I felt like saying, what about some colour? What about some colour? We had a green coloured Land Rover there, and everyone looked at it. It's quite an interesting green, that Buckingham green, or Knights, whatever it's called at the moment in the Land Rover. Everyone looked at it and said, gosh, that's a nice colour. I said, well, it is a colour. So I think the blue's interesting, isn't it? Because years ago, or even till quite recently, in the trade, dark blues, navy blues, were regarded as doom blue. In other words, God, never sell that. But I've always thought that a nicely polished and clean, we all love clean cars. All clean cars look better, pretty much. Navy blues, I think, is pretty cool. A nice dark blue. I think that's going to make it cool.
They say in the fashion industry for men, choose the traffic. The statement is, because navy blue is always a bestseller for men, navy is gravy.
Yeah.
It's a bestseller. Men love navy blue, particularly in Italy. Italy, particularly, as I'm
you can
stood
see
here
that.
now.
The sunshine helps,
Yeah.
doesn't it? It sort of makes the colour pop a bit more. And I think
Well, look
that
at their
I've got a thing
suits.
about
Yeah, exactly.
maroons and sort of maroony colours and sort of reds and different versions of that. We don't need any more really, really light, bright coloured colours of some description, which look like you've opened a packet of sweeties and they've just cascaded over the table. You just want something that's they're a bit more interesting and got more depth to them. So I think Thank you. Like the red of that.
No, I
think
think you're right. Color's going to be the only way. We've said this before, haven't we? Is the only way you can express yourself in cars, possibly.
Yeah.
So I think color will come back. Gray. I mean, we just need to bury all the grey cars.
Yeah, and I think that the matte thing. I mean, totally. That's
I
dead
think
to me.
the matte thing's quietly died a death because the car makers have realised that it's a warranty disaster when the things start to peel and people wash them the wrong way and put products on them. So they don't really offer too many of them now. The old special edition. Um, on the subject of aesthetics, I shouldn't really be listened to, and I've always made a point of saying that I will never offer any real opinion on the way stuff looks, because if you saw the way I dressed, you wouldn't trust that opinion anyway. On the subject of colour, I drive a bright yellow car most of the time. That most people don't understand why I drive a yellow car. I've never explained it. I'll tell you why. It's because I'm a hangover from my late daddy, who only chose the colour of his car based on whether it would help him see it in the car park. Because he didn't I think he just didn't really see stuff the way other people do. So
He's a practical man.
He always had a car that was in a colour that stood out, yeah, like a honeymooner's dick, basically. So it was either bright red, bright yellow, or bright white. That was really the colour of the vehicle. Solid colours always, never metallics. So I rarely go down that route myself because I like to have solid colours rather than metallics. I believe green. The moment cars start being presented in press specification in green, I worry a bit because that means green's become mainstream. And
It's a risk.
green shouldn't be mainstream. Green should be special. But what is reassuring about green, and why your friend that has the Make Green Again Instagram page will be safe, is that green cars suffer badly in the used car market. They still are worth less. You know, if you've got a sort of special green RS6 that will sell well, but if you've got anything else that's green, they struggle a bit.
That's true.
So
Mm,
so that means that green will never be fully accepted by the populace. I'll tell you what isn't cool. I'm going to be controversial here. PTS is not cool anymore. Sorry. I think the
that's a
coolest.
big statement.
I just don't think it is. I think if you wanted the rarest 911 ST, find a white one or find one that's got no PTS on it, because that for me, it's just gone too far. If everyone wants to be special, then by definition, the ordinary thing becomes more special because everyone else has done the special thing. So I just think
I
just
think
get a Guards Red. Or
that's great.
actually, Guards Red is now PTS, isn't it? But I just look at the standard colours and go,
Is it?
what's the one I like the most? I can't. I do think another. I always said, and I wrote this a few times, that one of the ways you can tell that the motor industry is starting to ingest itself is when it starts making cars with no windscreens and selling them for £1 million. That's the sign that the lunatics are running the asylum. But the other one is when people are spending £15,000 to paint their car a slightly different colour. That is insanity.
Yeah.
So
That is
I'd love a white ST with white wheels.
there you go. So,
Mm.
but I do think colour is the way forward. The battleship thing, I agree with Manish, has gone a bit too far. I don't really like matte cars very much. Um, but also it's a personal choice, isn't it? And I think maybe one of the aspects of car ownership that we should celebrate is, and it doesn't happen that often, it's a privilege, is to order a new car and to decide exactly what colour you want it to be and to go through that process. That's a lovely thing to do. As we see new car sales falling, but fewer people are enjoying that pleasure. I haven't done it many times in my life, but it is rather lovely to sit there with your configurator, or back in the day, your brochure, and work out which colour you want. And then you see it in the brochure and then it lands and you go, no, mate, that's not the colour it was in the brochure. Okay, what's the next item on the agenda?
Well, I think we should, because we're a bit tight on time this morning, we'll skip UK smart motorways a rant for another day. I think we should talk about short wheelbase or long wheelbase.
Oh God. Okay. I love the fact that someone else has had to cull a topic, because it's quite interesting, because quite often it's Mr. C that doesn't like it being culled, because you'll give me those slightly I prepared that one
I mean,
eyes.
this is my agenda today, and I put UK smart motorways in because I had a rantathon of all rantathons at the weekend, but we'll save that delight for another day.
Good. Well, we've just saved our audience from that. Good. So, what should we go for on short wheelbase, long wheelbase? Manish, you can go.
Oh,
Ooh, I'm going to answer this in a Formula One way, just kind of historically. I have got a real problem with modern cars, and you all know that. And every time someone puts a mock up on the internet showing you what a car from the 70s or 80s looks like compared to a modern Formula One car, I mean, they're almost, I think they're 30% longer, might even be a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
And they're a good 20% wider. And these long wheelbase cars, I guess they have to be long wheelbase. And you know, the old rubric is that a short wheelbase car is maneuverable, a long wheelbase car gives you better traction. But I guess, you know, a 1 ton car with I'm being slightly facetious, but 798 kilo car with 1,000 horsepower, very heavy engine with lots and lots of electronics managing how quickly these things go. And they are quick. We've just seen the Grand Prix. I know we're going to talk about it, but you know, they are really, really quick cars, but there's just something ungainly about the long wheelbase Formula One car. And you know, I know it's not quite truck racing, but you're not always listening to the driver saying, oh, this car's so big, they're quite difficult to see out of, they're not particularly maneuverable. And I just, if you find it on YouTube, you'll see a little moment in 1979 at the British Grand Prix. That was Williams' first win. Clay Regazzoni won. Alan Jones was actually in the lead of that race, and his engine failed. But look at some of the static shots, especially through things like Beckett's of a 1979 Williams. It's got 450 horsepower, this car, you know, 480. You know, it's a Cosworth DFV.
Yep, DFV.
There's nothing special about it. It's got a Hewland gearbox. It weighs 540 kilos. And just look at it corner. Just look at it corner. And in fact, look at it, especially going through complexes like Mag. Just watch it go left, right, left, right. Just watch it do that. And there is something to be said about, you know, this beautiful short wheelbase for racing at least. You know, I completely get if you've got a nice big limousine. Sorry.
Can I just offer, can you have a look at in profile where the driver's ankles are relative to the front axle line in those short wheelbase cars? That's
It's
all I'd
like
offer as someone that sometimes sits in these things.
No, but Chris, so in 1988, they changed the rules. The mass stayed the same. The wheelbase actually went up very, very little. All they did was they just stipulated that the seat needed to be further back in the car. So they actually compressed the area for the engines, the fuel tanks, and so on. So I completely agree with you. I think a driver's ankles are much, much better behind the line of the front wheel.
Attached to their legs, yeah.
Yes. You know, Martin Brundle, Johnny Herbert, a lot of people walking around or limping around will attest to that. No, it's not about, it's just, you know, it's a general point about short wheelbase versus long wheelbase. There's something beautiful about a motor racing car with a short wheelbase. That's all I will say.
Okay, I'll jump in here. So I agree, but I think wheelbase, I'm going to go back to road cars. Wheelbase is really about, it's relative to the overhangs of the car, and it's relative to the intended use of the car. So, and it's a really good question, this. And the dividing line between what works and doesn't work for us individually is really fine. So, for example, I've got a Daimler Super V8 at the moment, a car that I really love far more than I thought I would. When I first saw one of these things years ago, sorry, there's a loud motorcycle behind me. I thought it was ungainly when it was new because it's effectively a long wheelbase XJR. I now think it's a far more elegant looking car because the back door, if you concentrate, the back door is about the same length as the front door. And now I see XGRs and I think, why has it got that funny little back door? So I think long wheelbase sometimes can work. I'll give you an example when short wheelbase fails. The Alfa Brera concept looked fantastic when it was at the motor show, and when they made it, they gave it this really funny little whaelbase. I presume it was from the GTV or whatever floor plan it was based on. So you had these long overhangs, and if you go and look at a Brera, you'd fix the Brera by giving it a longer wheelbase. There are some cars that, I mean, you know, a short Quattro, fantastic looking car. Clio V6 is just, you know, just fantastic because ultimately, if you have really short wheelbases and very wide bodywork, that maybe is the ultimate recipe for a vehicle that gets all of our juices flowing is that sort of squat, four square look on the road. But I think maybe the older you get, the more you appreciate a longer wheelbase. As you slow down, you start to look at things in a more appealing fashion. I saw an S65 long wheelbase the other day. That's a car that when I was younger, I thought it took up too many counties. It was just huge. But I something about that chasm between the front and the rear wheels. I was like, I almost can't fit it into my sort of standard binocular vision. I had to sort of pan with it to see how long it was, and I
Are
thought it
you
was rather
migrating and
magnificent.
becoming a rear seat human? Do you think a little
I,
bit of
I,
you?
I just think sometimes there's an elegance about long wheelbase cars that when you're younger you
Oh,
don't appreciate. Is that
Yeah,
fair enough? I'll
yeah,
move.
yeah.
I'll move on
I think
to.
it is. I hadn't realised actually how rich in double entendre or smutty metaphor this subject was going to be. Just listening to you about the funny little back door on the XJR. I think you are right though. There's something about. I mean, typically, I'd have always said when looking at car adverts and classify, even from top mark days to stuff on piston heads or car and classic or whatever it is we're looking at now, when you see LWB, you think, oh no, I won't quite like that because it's just too long. I noticed one on Saturday when I was patrolling the car showrooms of Hatfield, where there's every posh car showroom there is. The Bentayga works as a long wheelbase car better than it does as a standard wheelbase car. Suddenly, I mean, they made the long wheelbase car because it was meant to be a replacement for the Mulsanne. I mean, that's, it sadly quite wasn't, but the Bentayga works as a long wheelbase. Land Rover Defender. This is we need a whole episode to talk about this one. Lots of people, in my experience, prefer the look of the 90, the shorter wheelbase Defender. I can't get past the fact it's a reverse TARDIS. No matter how much it looks nice, you think, hang on, it's got no function because you can't put things in it, and even almost people. And I've said this before, but the 110 and the 130, both of them are wrong. The 110, the rear overhang, and you're right, Chris, you talked about this, it's a proportion of the rear overhang, bit rearwards of the rear wheels, the wheelbase and front overhang. In the 110, the rear overhang is too short. In the 130, it's too big. There needs to be a 120. No one will buy a 120. Just call it the 110. Just make a 120 and call it the 110. Solved.
So before Neil Clifford answers, I'll offer you two examples of how you can shorten the car and how different the outcome can be. The original 2002 or one Maserati Spider. So they shortened the wheelbase on a great looking car. We all thought that'll look great. When it turned up, it just looked like the
Awful.
smallest dog in the litter. We can't use the R word, but it was like, that's the last puppy's going to get sold, that one. And then when Bentley chops some wheelbase out of a Conti and it gives us the Conti T, it's
Yeah,
one of the best looking Bentleys
Yeah,
did
ever
work.
made.
yeah.
Wheelbase is curious, the way that you can chop a bit out and the result can be so different. Neil Clifford.
Right. So this subject, as Chris will remember, Harris, came about because we were talking about purchasing Mercedes W126s
Yeah.
off of Car and Classic for probably about an hour about a week ago. And I sent him a link of what I thought was the ultimate W126. I've owned one of these. Old JK actually owned the same car as me because you always want to buy the long wheelbase. And I sent him a link of the W126 560 SEL. And Chris came back and said, I know it's cool, but really the short wheelbase is cooler. And I'm like, you bastard. He's absolutely right. Because if you're going to drive it, you look a little bit of a knob in a long wheelbase. And I've done it many times.
Looked a
I've had
knob.
the fives. Yes, often. The W140, which I bought an amazing 12,000 mile before they went silly prices for no reason at all. 12,000 mile W140 600 SEL. I think it was on an L reg off of roberthughes.co.uk for 12,995. No, 12,995. It wasn't 129 grand. It was 12 grand. But as soon as he delivered it, I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do with that? Because I look like a chauffeur driving around in it. And suddenly the W126 500 SE, very important SE, suddenly looks like a Boeing 747 SP. It just
Yeah.
looks fucking cooler. And really, this discussion is only about what should I buy and what should I drive and what am I going to look cool in? And it was always, for me, wrongly, naively, the long wheelbase, because you sat on the bog or in bed reading car magazines of the 80s and dreaming of what the bloody hell can I do with my life to be able to afford one of those really long cars. But the moment you're lucky enough to buy one, not because you've been successful, because they're now 12 grand in car and classics, they don't bloody work because they're too long. So the thinking man's answer of coolness and drivability is the short wheelbase. There, I finished
So
my sermon.
you finished there and the lesson. Manish, have you had a go at this?
Yes, I have.
You have, yeah, you did racing cars. I think we have to move on quite quickly because people have got to get to meetings. So should we go for a little bit of F1 and then we'll go for a very quick two-car garage? Yeah? A little bit of F1 then, couple of minutes. Neil, did you watch the F1 or not?
No,
Okay, good. We'll move on to Manish.
Max Verstappen, what a driver, eh? What a driver. This was a little bit of a McLaren bogey circuit. I should say that because they tend to be very good where you've got good downforce, a little bit of a compromise between sort of speed and good downforce. So this is a zero downforce circuit, not even a low downforce circuit. And I saw a picture of Max Verstappen's rear wing, and they already had a low downforce rear wing. Imagine a monster biting a chunk out of the back of a rear wing. That's what it looked like. But the reason why I say Max Verstappen, Max Verstappen, Max Verstappen is he had a feel for this. The engineers were taking him, including Miki's, a slightly different way. And he said, no, trim it. I want the ultra trimmed light wing and put a little bit more downforce on the front wing. If the front bites, I will control the car for all 60 laps. And he did, 57 laps. I mean, to drive that well, I've seen one drive at Monza. You won't be surprised. It was Ayrton Senna.
Alan Prost.
It was Ayrton Senna in 1992, and he beat the Williams doing a Max Verstappen. He just trimmed the car, concentrated, got every single braking point right, every single turn end point right. And it was a sublime drive. I thought actually Max's pole position was absolutely sublime as well.
Never.
He went, God, boy, and that boy wants to turn it on. He's an acrobat. He's a gymnast. He's an astronaut. He's just so far the best driver compared to everyone else. And I love Lando. I love Oscar. Maybe Oscar's curve is growing and growing, and we'll see what Hadjar will be. But my God, just when Max is in a car at his best, I love it. I love it.
Okay, let's move on to Chris Cooper quickly.
So, two things to say. The McLaren driver swap, because Lando's pit stop was slightly longer because a wheel gun didn't work, I don't get. I think I understand their argument, which was, we were trying to be fair and we asked him to pit earlier, but none of that changed the fact that something went wrong that can go wrong. And to try to fix that by intervention, I think Piastri did the right thing by saying, you've asked me to do it, therefore I will do it, but I don't agree. I think that's all he could have done. If Piastri had ignored it, I think it would have been a much bigger fuss. But I think that will come back to bite. I thought that was wrong, and I thought it was an odd misstep by McLaren. The other thing I wrote down my list was Mercedes. Don't they look grumpy and pissed off and unhappy all round? It got to the point this weekend where Toto actually said, well, I don't think, words to the effect of, well, nobody's done a good job this weekend. And I thought, there comes a point where beating people until morale improves might not be the only thing you can do to make the team go better, the car go faster. Antonelli had his first public scogging from Toto. George looks really fed up. Why haven't they signed anybody? Toto clearly wants Max in the car. We get that, but you can't run the whole world around will I, won't I get to sign one driver. And so let's watch that space.
Chris, he thought
Okay,
he
so
had
it's
Max in the car
interesting.
by going after Antonelli, didn't he?
Right.
Mr.
So
Data.
here we go. For once, I disagree about the swap of the two cars. I don't think it was necessarily about it was about pit stop.
Wasn't
They swapped what should have been the correct pit positions around to
correct.
allow Piastri to be
Get that?
protected from
Correct.
Leclerc.
Get
So
that?
actually, at that point, the strategy has been contorted to benefit Piastri. In which case, when it
Exactly.
goes a bit wrong, I get that. I mean, the media fallout from it is unfortunate. So normally I'd be totally with you on that. I'd go, that's ridiculous. It's just a racing incident. But the fact is, if they hadn't been trying to protect Piastri, Lando would have pitted first anyway. So I sort of don't get that. I think I agree with Manish. There's a paradox about Monza. The paradox is this: it's perceived as being the sort of skillless circuit because it's all straights. The irony is, Max proved it's arguably the most skillful circuit. It's the one
Absolutely.
place where a driver can really make a difference in the package. You can trim a car back and go, do you know what? I'll allow my testicles to be much bigger than everyone else's. And Max did something that no other driver can do. So I agree, amazing. I thought the race itself was fundamentally pretty disappointing. I was like, it was quite dull, really.
Yeah.
Apart from the
First
bit of a
4 laps.
tussle at the end, it didn't really do it for me. One point. Lewis Cut's a really sad figure at the moment, and but his sadness segued into the only thing that really annoyed me about the weekend, which is this, and I'll probably get shouted at for this. Lewis was interviewed, and this is maybe one of the pitfalls of live broadcasting. Lewis was interviewed in the pen afterwards. He trying to be positive. The interviewer was saying, you really looked on top of the car, and he's like, yeah. And they talked about the podium. An odd thing to reference the podium to a driver who's not made it onto the podium. They said they referenced the podium as being the coolest podium. Will you be up there or something? And he goes, no, I don't deserve to be up there. I didn't finish on the podium. I don't deserve to be up there. Fast forward 10 minutes, and all the Sky crew are up there on the podium, soaking up the applause. I don't know why you're broadcasting from the podium. For me, the podium is sacred territory. You
Yeah.
get to stand there when you win a race. And I think Sky really fucked up by having three people up there soaking up the applause, especially after Lando had just been booed up there. So if I was Lando, I'd be saying, right, so I risk my neck at 220 miles an hour between the walls of Monza and I get booed. And the broadcasters get to stand up there and get cheered for just holding a microphone. I just thought it was utterly ridiculous. There we go. And I said it on this group as well to my learned friends. So I got a bit
Yep.
excited about it. But I think if you're a driver, you don't deserve to be booed if you risk your neck. It's not fair.
Mm.
So let's do a two-car garage. Let's go. Can someone read it out? Because
Manish,
I
over
can't
to
look
you.
at my telephone.
Oh my God, I've got to find it. Have you got
Okay,
it
shall I
down?
read it out?
Please.
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Giorgio Armani was your hero, God rest his soul. You loved his clothes and you loved the way he made you feel about Italy. His clothes became iconic in the 1980s. So pick 2 Italian cars. They don't have to be expensive exotics, well, they can be, but pick 2 cars that are stylish enough to emerge from in an Armani suit and sunglasses and turn heads. There are no Italian cars that stylish that would make me turn heads. So why don't you go first, Manish?
Okay, my first one is this rather beautiful. It's pre-sale at the moment, but it's a 72 Giulia GTV. Can you see that?
Oh, nice.
Oh,
Yeah,
See
that's
that?
nice.
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
I see myself coming. That is black polo neck, cashmere, black jeans, black loafers, and you've got to have your beautiful Armani grey Prince of Wales check with black. That in the 80s would look so goddamn cool. And then this is the one where you turn up at a film premiere in a car. I've always had a love affair with the Lancia Gamma. I just think it's a perfection car, this one. The 2-door one, it's such a gorgeous shape. It's sort of the Bertone absolute peak saloon. And I could see that black Armani dinner suit, one of those ones that just flops off you very gently. Black brogues with that. I don't really like very shiny shoes. And the other thing is, I think you would wear an 80s wing collar with that. I know they're really not cool now, but I think you're going to come step out of that car, 80s wing collar. There you go.
Chris Cooper, 2 cars.
So I'm kind of with you, Manish. I think the nothing to me says 1980s Armani quite like a Maserati bi-turbo.
Yes. Why
This is on
not?
Car and Classic. The auction starts, so we're on the 8th today, so in a few days' time. Lovely spec, really, really nice. I like that. And the other one, which is sort of, this is the closest I'd ever get to getting out of a car that was kind of vaguely affordable and at least not feeling like a complete clown. It's a beautiful Giulietta Spider.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. So I think that starts this week. So on Friday when this goes out, you'll have a few days left to have a look at that.
To give you what, full marks and double ticks, see the headmaster for Chris Cooper for choosing 2 cars within their auction dates, because we all fail to do that every week. Thank you very much,
No,
Chris
mine are
Cooper.
both in their auction dates too. Thank you
Are
very
they?
much.
Oh, okay,
yes.
fair
Well
enough.
done.
Well, there you go. Car and Classic,
Yeah.
guys. Car and Classic. Get on there. Look at these auctions. Neil Clifford.
Armani for me actually is all about the denim. Even though I'm in Milan and there's beautiful posters of the man everywhere, and you land into Linate and you see that beautiful air plane storage building with Emporio Armani written on the top. For me, the 80s was about being able to afford a pair of those jeans with the little eagle on the back, and then you couldn't buy them in Portsmouth. In fact, you couldn't buy them in Chichester. You had to go to Brighton. You had to go to Brighton to get them, or get the train up to the King's Road. And then there was that beautiful Emporio Armani store on the Brompton Road from about 87. That
Yes.
was that for me, that's Armani. So I'm going sort of mid to 80s, and I'm going. He was always a bit off piste, Armani. You know, he didn't go with the trends. He just did his thing, right? And it was very hot, and then it was not so hot, but he always just did his thing. He didn't look at anyone else. So I would go, I'm going a bit quirky. I'm going Alpha RZ. And I think that, you know, we all know that car very well. The SZ is the sort of easy choice. They're a little bit ugly, but I think they're cool as fuck, to be honest. So I'm going, and I can't put that picture up because I'm talking into my phone, but there is one. There's 4 for sale in the classifieds. I haven't done the auctions. Sorry, Tom. We tried to be as good as we can on this thing. And the red is there were 3 colors in the RZ: yellow, red, and black. And actually, red was the rarest. So we're doing that. And then my normal choice, to be honest, you have to go with your instinct and your truth on this thing. You can't be a fakey. 4-door, late 80s, Italian, cool, understated. If you know, you know. I'm sure Giorgio would have had one. A Lancia 832, and he would have been chauffeured about on his little Sicilian island, and he would have a beautiful chauffeur, and the leather was the softest leather you've ever seen in your life, and probably grey. I had a navy blue one with chocolate. You're always desperately anxious that the electrics are going to go pop, even if you're driving down to Shell in
Rear
Chesham
wing.
to fill it up with petrol. But it's one of the coolest Italian cars. Both of which of these cars, you can get both of them for less than 100 grand. And on the basis Manish gave us no budget, I think I've been very frugal.
You have. Well done. Very good discipline there. 832. Yes, so I messaged a chap who's got one 2 weekends ago. In fact, apparently I'm going to go and have a go in it. So
Yeah.
there might be an 830, a transverse V8 saloon car test coming up. Giorgio Armani for me was sort of Miami Vice, really. I just,
Basically.
I just thought, I just thought it was Miami Vice. He was just cool. It was Ralph Lauren and Giorgio Armani were they were the 2 names that you
They
associated
are.
with the way Tubbs and Crockett looked. So obviously I've gone for a white Testarossa. There is one on Car and Classic. I'll put it up now. And I thought The second car couldn't be Italian, but it was designed by an Italian because ultimately I also Googled the cars of Miami Vice. Of course I did. And I realized that ultimately it was either about a Daytona or a fake Daytona Spider, or it was about a Testarossa, or it was about AMG Mercedes. Now, the W126C, people call it the C126. I've worked this out. It is actually the W126C, the coupe, the pillarless coupe by Bruno, who was Italian. So we can call it an Italian car, I think. It's an Italian car that happened to be built by the Germans.
Yes,
There's a 500, there's an early 500 SEC AMG with the Penta wheels. And that for me would be my two-car garage too. And I would
beautiful.
just wear. I wouldn't know what to wear, but I'd go to Neil Clifford, my style consultant, and I'd say, find me two vintage Armani outfits that will look good when I step from these vehicles at the Tutor Benny Hill Climb dinner tonight. There
See you
you
there,
go.
darling.
Yeah. So I think we'll do a little bit of music before we move on, because people have to go to meetings. So a quick bit of music, Chris Cooper.
I've got a Duran Duran thing going on at the moment, and
Oh, bloody hell, so have I.
save a prayer.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
Great.
Um, uh, Manish Pandey.
I'm going to go for Call Me, American Gigolo's music, Blondie, Giorgio Armani's big break into the movies, 1980.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. I'm gonna say one now. You're not allowed to laugh out loud. All right. The Only Way Is Up by Yaz. You've got
Yeah,
to listen to that. Listen to
Sorry.
the
dance floor
intro to
filler.
that, and
This is a
listen to
good
the
intro.
intro to that, and tell me you're not giving it that when the intro comes in. Right. Neil Clifford.
Listen to this intro. I'm Duran Duran too. My mate Paul, we're both a bit obsessed with Duran Duran at the minute. Ordinary World.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's
Oh,
same album.
yeah,
Yeah,
We
yeah,
Yeah.
we
yeah,
sent it. He sent
fantastic.
it to me yesterday.
yeah.
Right. Uh, Thank you very much to my learned friends, knowledgeable, sympathetic, kind friends, Neil Clifford, Chris Cooper, and Manish. We will all look forward to boring you again next week, and maybe you'll see some pictures on social media of this lovely Italian thing that we're doing tonight, myself and Neil. Thank you very much for listening.